My biggest source of stress is having kids right now.
I was like, wow, my basic income, if I can get 3K, is really damn good because of our industry, right? But like 2.8, wow, minus CPF, minus loan, I eat grass literally like 吃草咯。
新加坡就像一个 pressure cooker。
新加坡压力不单单是跟金钱有关，其实压力是有很多方面的压力。你的家庭也是一种压力，生活是一种压力，财经也是一种压力。
I think last December, I had this conversation or I interviewed someone regarding the pace of life in Singapore. And I was like, what do you think is the pace of life in Singapore? You know what she said? No life because we no pace at all. So I was like, oh my god, that's so true because like we don't have a rhythm in life anymore. We're just moving through the whole life motion just because like we need to get things done.
如果比以前跟现在的我，应该是退休了，应该没有压力啊。但是我的压力不是为了赚钱养家的压力？我的压力是根据潮流啊，因为现在什么东西都是用科技啊，那么我又要去学，又要去跟，又要去追，那么那些科学的转变又这么快啊，我跟不上。
My sources of stress: work, family, and time. As first-time parents, we think about how we can be better parents. Especially now, you look at the stresses that young people face. She's 2.5 years old. Or me and my wife, we try to give her as much time as possible. But we're also worried. We're also stressed because we don't know whether we're doing it the right way. We look at what other parents do and we think that maybe we should send her to this class, maybe that, maybe this, Everyone's doing different things. So there's that pressure.
我21岁的时候，我搬去澳大利亚。到我27岁左右，我在那边看到他们过的生活的理念，然后再跟我们新加坡比起的话，那边告诉了我，其实不应该做比较啊！哇，我的朋友开那个名牌车，哇，我也是要有这个名牌车。然后我的朋友是住 condo， 我要去住 condo。所以我觉得 managing your expectation within your means， or doing what you have to do within your means is very important， 很重要。
我今年40岁，所以我现在面对的压力是父母的压力，还有包括我的岳父岳母那边的压力，还有我的孩子这方面的压力。我妈去年中了风，差点去世，在凌晨12点多赶去急诊，医生跟我讲可能救不了，要不要开刀？在凌晨3、4点要做出一个决定。开刀还是不开刀，救还是不救，从来没有人教过我，在出现这样的情况或者问题，我该怎么处理？凌晨6点又要赶回家，叫小孩起床，还要带他去上学，送他上学，当做什么事都没发生呢，对吧？送完小孩7点钟又赶回去急诊，看着老妈今天会死吗？还是会活，谁都不懂。所以这样的心情，这样的压力，你觉得要怎么样去控制？
I think money is my main source of stress. Recently DBS rolled out this new function, net worth. I clicked into it and I'm negative because I have debt to pay. So I'm like, my net worth is negative and everyone is like, yo, my net worth is 100k right now. How do I make it into 1 mil? And I'm like, yo, my net worth is negative. Yeah, so that's my main source of stress because there is rolling interest.
My biggest source of stress is having kids right now. So I've been married with my husband for almost 7 years now, and we've been trying since we first got married. it's so hard to have a child, and it's something that I do want in our family. It's a yearning to want to have a child, to see them running around at home. But we'll just have to wait and see what God will give us.
时间压力，因为我们又要就是一个 work-life balance， 又要工作，又要兼顾家庭、兼顾孩子，一天只有24小时。我常常跟人家说，一天可以给我多6个小时、8个小时就更完美啦。因为工作的时候，你知道家里有一些事，就是孩子有一些活动啊，什么东西，可是我又不能够去到。可是又一方面，如果在家跟孩子在一起，我有没有忽略了我的工作？就常常会有这种压力啦。
我们的生活的压力很大，因为就是我们样样要拿到第一。那些有在做工的人，这个信息过来，其实你明天才可以回复，但是你就心急了，因为你不能够放松，你就开始叭叭叭，所以变成新加坡人目前呢都不会放松。新加坡人那杯咖啡如果要喝2个小时，他完蛋了。他说两分钟都不可以，他就放一块冰块，喝冷的咖啡。
70年代的人看不起80年代，80看不起90看不起00，Gen X、Gen Y、Gen Z、Strawberry、Snowflake Generation， 对吧？都有他们的这个道理。但我觉得他们真的不是这种什么草莓族 Snowflake Generation， 而是你要怎么样的去管这些人。以前的人赚钱是为了要生活，但现在的年轻人他们要的就是一种动力，他们要有这个 passion。
时代不同了，你不可以把你自己旧的一代的想法就这样子，靠在我们的身上来，就 expect 我们 to be the same because the whole environment has changed。你不跟时代并进的话，你就是在退步啊。Last time, what they worry about is, having a roof, being able to bring food to the table. But in my generation, because we had the privilege of having those being provided, our dreams and goals becomes what kind of dreams can I pursue? But I do agree that the even younger generations are more flaky. Not strawberry generation per se, but flaky in a sense that very sensitive towards what is being mentioned, and they 动不动就 call out on social media because I got my own platform, I can say whatever I want.
其实是父母亲的责任，从小你就不可以太暴毙，不可以太偏你的小孩。我记得我的儿子满1岁的时候，当然他有自己的礼物了。我另外一个礼物是买一个藤条。当然他1岁而已嘛，你不能打他嘛，我只是放在那边然后每天就跟他讲说 ，If you naughty next time, I will use the cane on you。有时候真的是他太坏的时候，我就要用这个方式来教导他，然后他会怕你跟他们整天互动，其实是会帮助他们对人生的一个理念，加强他们的 mental strength to deal with things later on。
我父母亲跟我爷爷奶奶他们那个年代的人，他们对医药知识很少，那么他们也是很迷信的人，所以好像比如说一个邻居他有精神问题，他们第一点不是把他送去板桥，通常他们就说他犯到某某神啊，或者犯到某某肮脏的东西啦，或者他们用翻译丢拱头啊。人家做拱桃给他啦。以前的人很怕送到板桥啊，一到板桥，他说我这个孩子或者这个家人就是回来的机会很少，因为你不疯，你到那边你就变成疯了，有这种想法。那么现在的情况呢又不同，现在的社会，如果小孩子有心理问题或者有这种精神的压力。精神的问题，父母亲都不敢说，因为说出来怕人家取笑。如果给我选择的话，我不会选择做现在的小孩子，我还是比较喜欢我那年代的小孩子。很简单，现在的小孩子没有自由，而且真的很辛苦。
当我小时候的时候，其实我的妈妈她是一个孤儿，因为可能她对爱的理念跟 sense of security 不是很好。我还记得那个可能我还 kindergarten 或者是 primary school 的时候，他有时候会精神上有一点不稳定呀，所以他把自己给 check in， 自己去 check in 去 IMH 啊。所以我知道，我看我妈妈这样，我不开心。我告诉我自己，这种事情不可以发生在我的生活还有我的婚姻当中。很多人他觉得他精神上不开心的时候，他觉得不好意思，或者是觉得我不应该讲出来，人家会排斥我。我觉得是错的，应该要讲出来。In few years ago 有一个YOLO 啊，这个字 You only live once， which is quite true. You only have one life， 对吧？所以你就有一个生命，你不跟人家分享你到底在想什么的话，那你就简单来讲，你就拜拜走了，人家会管你吗？讲真的，不会的。
So for me personally, as a potential employer, even if someone comes to me and tell me that I'm facing or I had gone through some depression before, I wouldn't mind listening into the severity of that situation. So when we do make that decision as employers would be if their decision to want to work with us imposes a risk to the other employees, like maybe they start to be violent or things like that, that's when I would consider not to hire them. But if they are not, it's the kind of where it's silent, you just have to observe and monitor them, that's okay.
I think by human nature, we are always very quick to assign blame whenever bad things happen because that's how we wrap our head around incidences, right? But I think it's not just on the educators that should be bearing the entire responsibility of the mental well-being of our younger generation. How do we as a society together, parents, young adults and educators, make it a better environment?
I think to be open or embrace mental health is to allow the people who face such challenges to come forward without restrictions into safe space and sanctuary for them to express the challenges that they are going through. There needs to be ability for people to just walk into such centers without a need to fill up forms or things like that. To just say I need to sit into a support group because of the challenges that I'm going through. Can I just sit in without explaining my situation and listen to know that I'm not alone? Of course, just like any physical health issues, if you need to get it fixed, it does incur some cost. But there are still opportunities for non-profit organizations to sprout in this area, ground-up initiatives as well. And even within peer groups, friends and families, there should be the ability to set it up without the expectation of income, just going out there to help and support.
哇，这个是大哥大，大哥大呀。
So do you have CDs?
Yes, Backstreet Boys, S Club 7. That one I can memorize all the lyrics.
So you know how to play Five Stone?
I'm super bad at